We don't care who your husband is. Like, it doesn't matter if he has 10 points or 100. It's just like being a nice person, being inclusive, making sure everybody's involved. There's so many moves throughout the year that I'm the one who's sending like the welcome text, and just like that goes such a long way. It really does. I remember going up and down and people being, so receptive to that and sweet, and making sure I was included, even though I didn't pay the wives fund that year because, it's the 16th time he's been sent down. With his past experience of that, I took that on into consideration of like how I'd like to act whenever it's my turn to be like, welcome to the Canucks. Like, let me know if you need anything. We're like building a book right now that like when new people come in, like you just hand them the book. Here's your pediatrician. It honestly makes it so much easier. And you're absolutely right that it makes it easier for the guys, because the guys come in and they have somebody that just like automatically works for them. And like, this is what we're doing. And then I always say, like, I'm just going to shoot a bunch of stuff in the group chat. If you can make it, great. If you can't, like, next time for sure. And the more stuff we did, the more people were getting into it, and hearing at the end of the season, like, wow, this was one of my favorite seasons he's ever played. Wow, I really want him to resign here. Like, I had so much fun here. This feels like home. That is worth planning everything, having those like, I just want people to enjoy it because it's not easy and it can be very lonely, and we're in the middle of nowhere. Like, so it just goes such a long way. And I think that just comes from experience of playing other places.
You're listening to Breaking the Ice podcast, a podcast that I created in 2020 to connect women within the hockey world. My name's Devin Dodaro, my husband's Charlie Dodaro, and we've played literally all over the world. We have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and let's just say hockey has taken my world by storm. What I've learned is that this community and these experiences are very specific, and you should not have to go through this alone. Through this podcast, I share the tools, resources, do's, don'ts, and what's helped me along the way while continuing to learn from each and every one of you. So lace them up and tune in for episodes twice a month. And make sure to follow the page on Instagram at Breaking the Ice Pod. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy summer. Happy July. I cannot believe how quickly the summer is flying by. It's crazy. I feel like we just got home and then you just get situated and you get back into your groove and routine and schedules, and then everything kind of flips upside down again and back to the grind of getting ready to go back to Europe. So if you might have missed this possibly from my Instagram stories, but we are headed to Guildford, England this summer, I guess. And yeah, we're excited. It's 30 minutes outside of London, and I'm super, super excited to not have a language barrier. And it seems like such a good group of girls so far, a couple in which I had connected with in years past, so that was kind of exciting, to see that we're having a pretty great group of imports on the team. So really, really excited to do that. But that's not to say that this time of year does not bring up a lot of emotions and stress and, yeah, just overall stress, if I'm being honest. This podcast is obviously all about just being vulnerable and being honest. And, I think a lot of us, it's hard for us to leave home, especially when we live in an established place with friends or family nearby, or just things that include our routines and our appointments and all of that. It's hard to leave. And something that I notice that I do is almost disassociate the fact that I'm leaving. Like, if people try to bring it up, I'm just like, yeah, whatever, because I just almost cannot even think about it. And this was kind of funny. I met up with one of my friends yesterday for a pedicure, and back prior, maybe a month, we had a date at the library with our kids. And you know how those play dates go. It's like you're kind of just passing each other and trying to talk when you can in between chasing your kids playing and trying not to hurt themselves. And she was like, it was so funny because later that night, you literally posted on your Instagram that you were moving to England, and you didn't even mention that to me when we were together. And I was like, that's so crazy. But I think it's because I'm just so used to doing this that to other people, and it obviously is a big deal, do not get me wrong. And this is part of what I always say, is that we normalize this lifestyle. But to other people, like, moving overseas is obviously a massive deal, and it is to me too. But I think I'm so used to just doing this and just signing somewhere and, on with our lives of the grind of getting ready to go, that I just like didn't even mention it to her. And she's like, "What the hell? I literally found out on social media." So that is just to say that the summer is flying by. These things happen so fast, and I definitely should do a solo episode soon, because I feel like there's been a lot of questions coming in, and there's been a lot of just kind of anxious feelings I've noticed in the Sunday check-ins, and I'm with you. I get it. It's a lot to go to a new team, a new country maybe, just starting over from scratch and packing the houses up and getting the to-do list and essentially being the house manager. It's a lot. So you are definitely not alone. This time of year also is a lot for my husband and for me. We have both a lot of things going on. Like, I have a lot of stuff going on with the kids, in addition to, like, I'm the ordering queen for getting our lives ready for the hockey season. And my husband has a lot of stuff he has to do around the house, and he's handling all the visa stuff for the visa appointments, and we got to figure out all of our dog stuff. And so it can often feel like we're just going through the motions, and like two ships passing in the night, because we're so busy. And so it does bring up a lot of just feelings of stress, and sometimes we can get swept up in that, for sure. So if you are going through that, please just know that you're not alone, that this is not normal to have to pack your life up, go somewhere for 8 months of the year, come back for 4 or 5, and do it all over again. So you're doing great. And my biggest piece of advice is to just start making your lists now. Start getting that busy work done that you do not want to have to be doing like a week before you leave. Even though it feels tedious and boring now to do it, you're going to be happy you did. We are already chipping away at stuff that seems like it sucks to do now, but we will be happy that this is done. And we have to make the best use of our time, because, like I said, summer is going by so fast. It's crazy. More on that soon. I really think I need to do a solo episode. I've been saying that for months and I haven't, and we need a good catch up. However, I do want to get into the episode today, because that's why you're here. So I had Natalie Miller on this episode, and Natalie's husband, JT Miller, plays for the Vancouver Canucks. And guys, Natalie is so funny. She had me laughing from minute 1 into the podcast. She is hilarious. She just makes jokes and makes light throughout the entire podcast, which I love, but also provides a lot of valuable insight into how she handles different stressors in this lifestyle. We chat about a lot of things that one goes through as a hockey significant other. We covered a lot of ground in this episode, and I'm not going to list all of the bullet points, and I'm sure you might have read in the show notes prior. I always list kind of a general outline of things that we talk about. A couple key takeaways that I want to talk about that we chatted about was, number 1, Natalie is an amazing interior designer, and actually something that happened in the hockey life is kind of what pushed her to follow her passion, which was actually a trade after building her dream home. And she really realized that that was something that she wanted to do. So she gets into that and how she started her business and how she's been able to maintain it while also supporting her husband's career and being a mom to her 3 kids. She also opens up about what it was like losing her mom during the hockey season and the challenges that came with that, which is something that is which I felt really important to talk about, because I follow a lot of you guys on Instagram, and I have seen other posts like this, and I cannot imagine how difficult something like that would be just in general without hockey, but then throwing hockey intertwined in this makes the emotions and everything from being away from home that much harder. And the third thing I want to talk about, which, like I said, we talked a lot about other things too, but was to how to have a more inclusive hockey season with the ladies on your team. This is crucial. This is life-changing if you have a good group that gets along, that is inclusive, and it can truly define what kind of season you have. Like I mentioned to Natalie, I feel that you will never forget the people that kind of take you under your wing. And I still remember that, on each team that we've played on, especially when I was younger, who kind of just took me under their wing, showed me the ropes, updated me, filled me in on things. Whereas now I'm kind of in that older role where I feel like I would like to do that with other women. And I've tried to do that most certainly when I can, with just trying to make everybody feel included, making sure that there's, a group chat where we throw out different things going on, and really just making a community for us ladies because we're all away from home too. So more where that came from. But thank you so much, Natalie, for coming on the podcast and being so much fun and being vulnerable and just sharing all about you and your life. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you're listening today, please throw it up on your story, tag me. I want to see where you're listening from, and just showing some support to the podcast page and to Natalie.
For some reason, my video is like crazy.
I can't even see myself. I am like not good with technology at all. Like, where did I go?
Literally for some reason, it's literally like on my phone. There we go.
I see you. Hi.
Hey,
I don't know where I am though. Hold on one second.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I was just getting off the phone with customs. It has all of our luggage.
I just saw your story. Did they lose everything?
They didn't lose it. They just wouldn't release it. We sent, and we've done this every year we've been in Vancouver. We send all of our luggage like via FedEx, and the team puts it under its account, signs off on everything, and just to get us out. And for some reason, I think my husband had like medications or something in there, and they wouldn't. We got here Monday and we shipped it last Friday. So it's literally been a week. I've been just wearing the same clothes over and over again.
It's always something. It's always something. It just can't go smoothly ever. There's always something that happens.
It has to humble you at least once a season where you're like, this isn't normal.
Yeah. Right. So you guys are is it Pittsburgh now?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you guys rent when you go to the season, or do you guys have a house that you own there?
We rent in Vancouver because we're American, and buying is just like, forget about it. It's the most expensive place in the world. And Pittsburgh, we just own this home and it sits.
Okay. Well, that's kind of easy in some ways than others, I guess. So you have to send like everything home and then you bring everything back.
We have our stuff, it's rented all year round. So it's basically as if we own it. And our landlord's really cool. So she knows it sits for like 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay.
Basically, like when we're gone, she goes in and fixes anything that broke during the season. And our nanny's all year round. So she pops in and, runs the water, whatnot. But
that's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So you can leave some stuff. You just bring the essentials, and then that's
basically just clothing and sporting equipment. Because, my husband can't get 2 sets of children's hockey gear. I'm like, really? We can't just, you want to, okay, we'll drag it. It's fine. No problem.
And I was like laughing too, because I just put up, I know you reshared it, but I put up that question box on Instagram, and I got like so many super fan questions, which I was like cracking up. I have to read it, one of them to you, because you're gonna laugh. I don't even know what this is.
I put a question when I every now and then, like if I'm like no kids at home, like my stuff's done for the day, but it's fun because my sisters and I love the questions that come through. It's like we'll sit on FaceTime and just go through them. Some of them are so out of line. I'm like, the audacity.
Tell me more. Like, what are these questions?
So insane. Like I mean, the majority of them are going to be about JT. The reason I jumped in the playoffs with followers like 5,000, and I was like, what is happening? It's because Vancouver hasn't made playoffs in like 8 years. So all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, it's so overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Someone was like, is she afraid that her son thinks his name's actually JT Miller now? I'm like, what does that even mean?
Like My kid chants it. It's the worst thing ever. And he started doing it on the airplane on the way home the other day, leaving Vancouver. And I was like, oh my God,
Down.
shh, shh, shh. As if I'm not reprimanding my two other kids that are fist fighting in B12.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's start off. Give us a little background on you, where you're from, a little bit of your hockey journey, your kids, like what do you have going on? Just spill it
Yeah.
all and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Well, my name's Natalie. I'm married to JT Miller, who plays for Vancouver Canucks. He has been in the NHL now for 12 years, which is insane. We've been together 16 years, married 8. We have 3 beautiful children. He played 6 years in New York, a year and a half in Tampa, and we've been in Vancouver for 5 now, and he just extended for another 7. So I'll die in Vancouver. I will be the Prime Minister of British Columbia if anyone needs me. Um, I am a business owner. I own an interior design firm based mainly now in British Columbia because that's where we're doing the majority of our year. I'm from Pittsburgh and I have 3 kids, 6, 5, and almost 2.
I'm processing this. Okay, 6, 5, almost 2, 16 years.
Yeah.
Give us a little advice on how you've been doing this hockey life for 16 years. Please
Oh
tell me.
no. I know. Some of the girls are like, this is year 8 for us. I'm like, unfortunately, I started in the AAA. My husband was playing for the Pittsburgh Hornets, and I got to sit at an ice rink for nationals my last year of college or high school. No, yeah. So JT and I did long distance for the first like 5 years of our relationship because he was selected to go play the national team pretty quickly after we met, and I had no idea what that meant. So when he was moving to Ann Arbor, I was like, and I'm doing what? And he was like, I don't know, you can visit. I'm like, okay. His parents drove me to Ann Arbor almost every single weekend. It was fun. It was a blast, but it's extremely difficult. I don't recommend the long distance life. It's especially when you're that young, you're not mature enough for that. So
Mhm.
definitely a rough 5 years long distance. And then we moved together when after I think we were 19 when we moved in together.
Wow. Wait, so when did you guys start dating?
14.
14. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So you have spent like majority of your adolescence
Yeah.
and
More than half our life.
life
Yeah.
together. Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys have been together through all life's transitions.
Yes. All of them. Every
So,
trade.
so did you guys, how did you meet?
We met because so he's from a really small town in Ohio, and his parents would drive him an hour and a half to Pittsburgh because that was the most like local hockey to him. And the team that he played on in Pittsburgh, my guy friends from my high school also played on that team, so they would all hang out. You know how it goes when you're 14. You bring your girlfriends and I'll bring my guy friends. I just didn't realize he was going to bring a bunch of like greasy hockey players who were my husband, now husband, was not cute. He's did an interview once and it was like, oh, how'd you guys meet? And I was like, he was eating a row of Oreos and he told me I needed Proactive. So it's not this fairy tale story of like, it was love at first sight. I mean, I think I brought the Oreos, so maybe for him it was love at first sight. Like I had the goods, but I don't know.
Is he finding out that this is your thoughts through this podcast or does
No, I make it very clear I'm out of
okay,
his
good.
league all the time.
I was gonna say like I'll do a little like trigger warning like if you're
Yeah.
listening, JT, like don't take
No,
it personally.
no.
Like years
We
have
did
passed
it.
since then.
When he played in New York, they did like a beginnings on him where like when he was like one of their first round draft picks. So they would do like these like behind the scenes and they like, came to our small town in Pittsburgh at the apartment we were living at. And I said it right in the interview. I was like, he was, ugh. Look at him. I was like, started from the bottom, now we're here. Yikes.
Oh my God. Stuck through thick and thin. That is hilarious. So you followed him like obviously before he was in the NHL, and I was looking at his elite prospects because I'm always like, okay, where have they played? What have they done? So you guys did a
Yeah.
little bit of like AHL time too, and then he's
Yes.
been like a solid NHLer for quite a while now, and obviously just signed a set. Do you say 7 years?
Yes.
Oh my God, which is amazing.
No. He
So
said who's 37. Who's
wow.
doing that? We're doing that? They still do that in 2024?
Well, that
Okay.
is like amazing, first of all, and congratulations. That's nice to like have that stability and know that you're gonna stay in the same place for that long. I feel like that takes off a lot of the stress and unknown, especially when you have kids that you're like having to enroll in school and stuff. It's just nice to have that like, okay, we're good, we're familiar, we know what's going on here. But explain to me what it was like following him for so many years, doing that long distance, and then when he got like his first NHL opportunity, like what was that like for both of you? Because I feel like that would be so cool just as a significant other at that point as well, since you guys met so young.
Totally. I think the draft was the first spot where I was like, oh my God, whoa, like you win. He at that time around the draft, you know, if you're going to go in the first round or if you're going to sit for a couple of days or what. So I don't know why it was such a shock to me. I think one, because I thought he was going to go somewhere else, and then he was surprisingly picked a little earlier. Um, and he's a small town boy and he got picked to go to New York. So I was like, also sitting there like, how are we going to fare in Manhattan? But okay. But I remember our first season out there, he got sent down maybe like 8, 11 times. And we had a dog, and it was like, you know, if this is what it's going to look like I'll pack the bags, I'll meet you there. And but him getting actually called up for his first NHL game was extremely exciting. I was at college. I went to Clarion University, like 2 hours north of Pittsburgh. And he sent me a text and was like, I just got the call. I think you need to get in a car immediately, go to Pittsburgh, and you'll be flying with my mom. And I was like, I remember like sitting around a table, like, you know, college where you're like with all your girlfriends drinking. Yeah. And I was like, what's going on? What is happening? I turned my
Wow.
phone on to my roommates and I was like, I'm going to New York tonight. And it was, I was just in that moment, just so proud of him. Like, you know, as a significant other to an athlete, you see all the struggle they go through, and then they get to the pinnacle moment where it's like, you get the call. And that it seems like so long ago, which really it was a while ago for us now, but you know, we still get moments like that where it's like really big achievements in his career where we can both look at each other and be like, okay, so cool though. Like we secretly celebrate a lot behind the scenes. I
Oh,
think, you know, you try to stay like humble in front of everybody, but there's a lot of stuff that we've been able to celebrate the last couple years that I'm just so proud of, like where he started and where he is now.
yeah, that's amazing. And so after that NHL, did he go back to the AHL for a bit and kind of did that like
Oh yeah. I want to say like it was like 2 seasons of up and down. And then there was one time where it was like Thanksgiving that second year and he never saw the HL again.
okay. How was that for you doing long distance and the up and down? Because I've done that too when we were super young. And I remember just being like, this is so frustrating because I cannot plan anything. And then just being so young and like being in that phase of life, and you just feel so like, I feel like I can't even plan a trip to you because I don't know if you're gonna be there when the time rolls around, or what if you get sent down or up when we're there. You know, it's like there's so many things. So like how was that for you guys?
Well, by the time we moved in together, I was still in college. The last 2 years of college, I went online. At that time, my sophomore year, he's like, okay, we've been together 5 years. Like, I'm not giving you an ultimatum, but like, I want you to continue to do schooling, but we got to make a transition here. Like, this is so hard. So by the time that I got there and was living with him, that was his up and down years. So works out works out well for him that he's got like a personal mover. And I always laugh because I always felt like they called him when he was on the road. I'm like, really? Like uh, I'm in the middle. I remember emailing my professor and being like, I know there's a final today at 1. My husband's playing an MSG later on tonight. My boyfriend at the time, I guess. And I just remember the professor being like, you can't miss the final. Like, so there were so many times of like, but I just remember thinking like, this isn't going to be forever. And, you know, so a lot of the times I just was like, car's already packed on me with MSG. Like, I'll see you soon. We did that for a couple seasons and then really got some stability there, which when you get the stability, you really appreciate it.
Yes.
Um, but ultimately until this year when there was a no move clause kicked in, that's the first stability that we've really truly had.
And what
So
can you explain what that is?
the no move in this 7-year deal that he just signed with Vancouver, it's 4 years no moving. So it's just basically 4 years of uh, he would have to waive a no move clause for them to be able to move him. And then after the 4 years, there's like a 15 team no trade or something that, you know, he can still select where he'd like to go.
Okay. Interesting. I've never heard of that before. Is that something that you just like negotiate in your contract essentially?
Yes. And to be honest, he hasn't gotten that flexibility until this contract. I think it's something that maybe comes with like a bit of finagling.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So then you guys moved in together, and then at what point did you get engaged and then start that whole journey?
If it was up to JT, I would have been engaged at 13. I remember actually when I was in the States, he was like, I want to get married young. I want kids young. I want to have all our kids out by like mid 20s. And I was like, hold on. We are at a TGI Fridays and our parents just dropped us off. Back off. Like, I just remember being like, this is a weird guy. Like, I don't, um, I graduated college at 22. Weeks later, I mean, mid-August, I was having my graduation party. Because I didn't graduate with everybody in May. I graduated, I think maybe a couple months after that because I was online. And he proposed within a week and a half. We were married 9 months later. We had a kid a year later after that, a kid 12 months after that, we did another and then had, yeah. So we did, we got all of our kids out by 30. We were married young and had a bunch of kids young. So I guess the guy got what he wanted, but I remember being like, I'm sorry, are you carrying the children? Like, what's happening?
Well, we like a guy that knows what he wants. We'll
Yeah, a
give him.
little crazy though at 15. I'm like, you haven't even had chest hair come in yet. Like, I don't, what's going on here?
Oh my God. And then your two oldest, did you get pregnant at 3 months postpartum?
I did. Yes,
Oh my gosh, Natalie. How was that?
here's the worst part. JT got traded from New York in the middle of an airplane ride on his way, ironically, to Vancouver. He got traded. I was 8 months pregnant at home. Didn't realize the trade was happening. I texted the captain of the Rangers got traded then, and I texted her just thanking her for everything. She was incredible. Still a good friend to this day. And she was like, "What are you talking about? You're coming with me." And I remember being like, news to me. Like, where do you see that? I see him on the screen. I don't see my husband. And then like minutes after the deadline, he came as like a little like asterisk at the bottom. And I was like, what is going on? Like insane. So when we went to Tampa, I had my first daughter. My husband signed a 5-year deal with Tampa that summer while I was postpartum with my first. I came back for the off season, from the off season, and I had liver surgery when I was 21. I had like a benign tumor. And so I get that checked pretty much yearly, year and a half now. And I was starting to get pain over there. So I went to the team doctor and he takes my blood work, urine, all that. And he comes back in and he's like, I saw your husband this morning at physicals. He looks great, great shape. How you feeling? I was like, great. I mean, I have a 3-month old, so I'm like pretty tired. And he's like, 3-month old. Huh. Okay. Mm, You are pregnant.
Possible that this is raised from the previous.
I was like, I'm what? He's like, you're pregnant. I'm like, no, I'm still breastfeeding. I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me. He had to give me a few minutes. And the nurse was like, do you want me in here? Or do you want me out? Do you want me out of the room? I was like, just please.
Oh
My
my.
husband was thrilled. He was so excited. It took me 6 to 8 weeks to really acknowledge the pregnancy. I was in quite shock.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay. Yeah. So PSA, you can get pregnant while breastfeeding, everybody.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, I stopped then and there. I was like, and that's that. I'm not going to do that. We're not. I had a hard time getting pregnant with our first. We did fertility in Manhattan. Got a bunch of ovarian issues. And now I have a total hysterectomy. So I have no issues at all. But um, my doctor did warn me. Shout out to Dr. Wanger in New York. She did warn me it may happen very easy for you next time. And I was like, sure.
Wow. Okay. And then you have a 2-year-old now.
Yes,
Okay.
almost two.
Okay. So did not happen again. So that's good. That's a good balance.
I
Got the
love that.
first two done. So how is postpartum for you and this hockey life added into it? Because that can definitely amplify a lot of anxiety, I think, for a lot of people. So I'm curious if that was the case for you or if it was like what your experience was like.
Totally. I mean, I feel like there's never a right time to have a baby. I was just telling someone this the other day because, we weren't expecting a trade in New York and then he gets traded and I'm 8 months pregnant. And like, that's a blur going early with high blood pressure, believe it or not. Like, surprise, surprise. The doctor's like, of course you're stressed. I'm like, just get it out. Just get it out. And then my husband was traded again when I was 6 weeks postpartum with my second. And
Oh.
we had built and bought a house in Florida, thinking that we were putting roots down there with a 5-year deal.
Mm.
Um, so I think a lot of my postpartum anxiety and like a lot of like not being able to enjoy them as like little babies is because a 1-year-old and a newborn, you're just asking for it. I was not prepared. I was also 25 and 26 years old. So I do feel like with my last one, I was like, okay, this is what to expect. I have a little bit more of a game plan going into it, and that helped my anxiety. But still, I mean, there's a lot of like, the travel for us internationally now, like it brings up a lot of it. But I do feel like I nailed it on my third, but my first two, I was just riddled with postpartum,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's to be expected. And I think I've moved really close to my pregnancies, not a month before, but I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks. And that was with my second. But I feel like moving right after would be harder almost because I mean, obviously with all the unknowns of like going somewhere and giving birth and doing all that, but just like with all the emotions and everything you're already going through and the hormone fluctuations and just the sleep deprivation and everything, and then like having to move in the middle of that is like not normal. Like that's not a plan for most people. And I think that's like the hardest part where you find yourself not relating so much to like other moms sometimes outside of hockey
Right.
because like only the people that are in this lifestyle can understand situations like that. And we normalize it. Like we're like, oh, we're moving 6 weeks postpartum. It's like, that's not normal. Like people
Totally.
don't do that. People don't go through that. And so like having to go through all of those things, like that's just like you're going to be anxious and you're going to have to go through like so many things emotionally, I feel like, because of that.
Right. I had my second I saw both my girls in Tampa, and my second one, they were both playoff babies. I don't know what I was doing in the month of August, but heads up. Um, so that was the year that I would have, before Tampa won both of its cups. It was
I
the
saw
year
that.
before.
I was like, it was right before they left. They won
Yeah.
that.
And they were really good the year that we were there, like at President's Trophy. Like it was so good. And I got knocked out in 4 against Columbus, but I was pregnant. So we just kind of waited until the baby came. And my husband's like, yeah, I booked a jet for us to leave 7 days after. And I was like, I can't leave. He's like, okay, it's gonna be okay. I mean, my dad and everybody's gonna fly with us. I remember crying that whole first week. And not because I was leaving Tampa. Also didn't help when we were walking out of the house that we had just built and lived in for like 6, 7 months. He looked at me and he's like, I think this might be the last time we see the house. And I said, pardon?
Yeah.
He said, I think I'm gonna get dealt at the draft. And I said, oh, you don't say.
Hmm.
And so I just remember like, I think like after we had gotten home, I was like, hey, listen, the second postpartum was so bad that I was like, the changes, I have a 1-year-old that just started walking. It's just so much that I wish I could have slowed down a little bit and been like, that's truly that moment is where I learned to like ask for help from
For
people.
sure.
His mom was like, can I help? I'm like, actually, yeah. Can you take the 1-year-old? I can't, I'm drowning right now.
Right. Exactly. It's so hard to ask for help too, because I think in this lifestyle, you do so much of it on your own.
Yeah,
Like you're living away from home, you don't have your support system for 8 or 9 months of the year. So you're used to that grind and that go, 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 that like when the off season comes, I find that it's so hard for me to be like I'm like, oh, I just feel like so I don't want to be a burden to like,
right.
oh, can I like run an air? Like, do you mind? Like, it's like, but you have to, because like that's the biggest piece of advice I would give to new moms too, is like take the help and ask for the help because you will get to a point where you do feel like you're drowning and it's like the only way to get out of that is to ask for help.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's really hard. I have the best in-laws in the world. I mean, my dad is also very helpful, but my in-laws are 52 years old, 53 years old, and they're like, their houses are built here around my kids. And I'm like, it doesn't get better than that. We've been home. I haven't seen my kids since we got home, which is great. I don't have their clothes.
They live like right near you
Yeah.
then?
They're all around us. Yeah, his mom just moved up to our area while we were away and bought a
Wow.
house and set it all up for our kids. And his dad's probably 45 minutes from us. But yeah, they are just like in their glory right now.
Yeah. Do you have do they come visit you during the season?
Yeah. Yeah. His mom was out several times. I want to say his dad was out maybe once or twice. But when they're out, they're so helpful. Like it's just such a good trip every time.
While we're on the topic of kids, you guys know that my kids do not sleep on the airplane, and it's been a major trigger for me in the past of stress because, as we know, in these long international flights, we want to keep our kids quiet so that people aren't annoyed at us. But I've kind of just come to accept it for what it is. And if they fall asleep, then it's a pleasant surprise. However, I'm still determined to try to get them to sleep on the plane, especially because we might be taking a red eye this year to Europe. And I kept hearing about this brand Aircot, but I never had tried it out. It's owned by another hockey wife, Stephanie, and I'm super excited to try it out this year during our travels. I just got my 2 Aircots in the mail and I love how compact it is. It's the most compact on the market for seat extenders and it rolls up to fit into the side pouch of my backpack. It doesn't take up all that extra carry-on space that you need when you're traveling with kids. The nice part about it too is when I was talking to Stephanie, she let me know that it literally can be set up in seconds, which is key when you're trying to get your seat situated when loading the airplane with your big crew. I am so excited to finally just have a little bit more space on the plane for my kids to rest their legs, for them to lay down, and I think it'll just be so much more comfortable for them overall. Now is the time, you guys, to get all of your stuff for your travels for the hockey season. If you're interested in ordering an Aircot, you can use my code ICE10 for 10% off at checkout. And I want to talk about something you said too about like building a house and then like having to leave it. I feel like that happens a lot. Like even if you have an
First.
off-season home, yes, like for us, we know that we're going to leave it for the hockey season and like we always come back to this house, but I feel like it makes it so much harder when you have a place that you love and like you want to be and then like something happens with hockey. And especially with like what you do, you're an interior designer, so I'm sure you make your space like amazing. So how have you been able to like compartmentalize that with hockey? I know you've been in like the same place for a while, but like even so, like you still have to leave when the hockey season ends. And how do you like mentally go through that, if that makes sense?
No, for sure. Honestly, leaving that Tampa house, I was like, oh my God, I like there was just so much like it's not even towards the team or the situation, honestly. I'm just more annoyed that I'm like, I don't even have our stuff unpacked from like I wasn't even, it was just a blur at that point. I'm just like, okay, I'm a little overwhelmed here. Before we were just doing rentals and like we can take the stuff out and move. And now I'm like, this house is gonna sit until it sells.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it sold right before COVID hit, luckily. But I just, yeah, the silver lining in it now that I'm like looking back at it, like these homes that we left and like that I made my own, and even the one that I built. So the one in Tampa that I built was like my first experience of like, oh, I really like design. I
Mhm.
really loved the 10 to 12 hour design days. This is so weird. JT like hates building, like he's just like, do it all. I don't really, he didn't even pick the house out. I flew down to Tampa by myself. And like I just love the whole process. And that's how my business got started. So now looking back on it, I'm like, okay, so if I didn't have that experience, NMI is not a thing. And then I went to Pittsburgh and I was like, I want to build again. JT's like, great, like we love this land, like let's build on that. So I did it again. And like those pieces are in my portfolio because they're built by me and just like a passion that I didn't know existed.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So how did you, so that's how your passion started, but how did you like actually start the steps to start your own business?
Yeah, I love this story because it's funny and embarrassing for my husband. If any moment I can embarrass him, I will. We
Oh,
were
let's
sitting
hear
there,
it.
yeah, we built this Pittsburgh home that we're sitting in now. And I went hard. I went super custom and he gave me a top budget and was like, please don't go over that. We're in Pittsburgh, remember? And I was like, yep, no problem. So We closed on the house a week before we left for Vancouver for the first season. No, it would have been during COVID. I don't know. Whatever it was, we're on the airplane out there, and he's like, you should really like, why don't you kind of like think more about the design thing? Like, why don't you kind of like, start it? And then, COVID hits, and we're sitting there, and he's like, I think I'm going to take a finance course. And I was like, what? You're gonna what, Mr. Math? Like, what's going on? And he did. He took a whole finance course. Me and our buddy, who's our financial advisor, we were making fun of him for a while. But he did. He's actually extremely intelligent. I hate to say that, but and I took the design course in there. So I took the design course. I believe you had on your podcast Ben Sherratt's wife, Jacqueline.
Yes.
Yeah. So she has a mutual, how small the hockey world is. I reached out to one of the Vancouver girls, and we were chatting, and she's like, oh, my girlfriend does design. Like, you should chat with her. And I was like, did I just like text her? Like, I just like genuinely don't know where to start. She was so sweet, and really gave me all the right things to get started, which is now ironic that I'm doing that for somebody else now, in the hockey world. And it's just like the snowball effect. But that's kind of how, like, I took a course, put it out on Instagram, like, this is what I'm doing. And I got 13 projects from there. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and it was all free, obviously. It wasn't like the business was not created yet, but I'm working on it. JT's like, I've never seen anything give you that much joy. Like, you would come out of your office, Nat, and you'd be in there for like 4 or 5 hours. He wasn't working, so he was literally just like hanging with the kids. And I would be like just elated to tell him about everything. He's like, you got to brand it. He's like, whatever you need up front, like, I'd love to be an investor. And I said, please. Please. I would rather take out a bank loan than take your money. No, he was so supportive, and it was just so great. And from there, I branded and have been booked ever since. Now I'm booked well into 2025.
Oh my God, that is amazing. That is so awesome. That is such an amazing story. That is so cool that you found something too through just doing something for your own family and then making it your own business. And
Totally.
by the way, what part was like embarrassing towards him? Because that was the cutest story ever.
I know. I didn't. It was an accident when I called him intelligent. We'll have to cut that part out. But the finance part, like with the homeboy, I don't even know. We don't even have documentation that he graduated high school. So if Pioneer has those papers, please send them my way via Gmail. But yeah, I just found it hilarious that he came into my office like, I think I'm going to do a finance course. And I said, I think you're going to do what? Mr. Take Puck to the head? Like, I can't. No.
So what were you going to school for prior? Like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do before the hockey life? Well, in the middle of the hockey life, before it was like, this is what we're doing, like permanently?
Yeah. I definitely went in the business direction for school. His mom owns an IT firm, and I just knew going into it that this was going to be so difficult to have a career, no matter if he could be that player that's like in a city, it doesn't matter. Going back for the off season, like, you're not explaining to somebody in a high rise in New York City that, like, oh, I have to leave for 8 weeks to go home to party with my friends. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So I knew I needed something remote, flexible on my schedule, able to be like, I'm off for 2 weeks. I'm going like, so I worked for his mom when I first graduated college. And she owns an IT firm that she let me brand and do marketing and recruiting in every single department to see if I liked anything. And then when I took that design course, I remember like I worked for her before kids and then a little bit after I had the two. And I remember having a Zoom call with her, and I was like, listen, I love working for you so much and I appreciate it. I was like, I think I might have found something that I really, really love. And I'd love for you to help me like start the business part of it. She's a great businesswoman. And she still helps me to this day with like accounting stuff. And it's so much fun. But yeah, no, I think the business courses and stuff that I took in college, and he's eventually graduated with, helped me in the business aspect of because everybody could do, not everybody, but like designers can design, but the business part really it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like interior design is really hard, and it's actually like a skill, because I feel like even just trying to like pick stuff out for my walls or whatever, I like cannot ever decide. And then like for so long, I feel like I was just buying stuff just to like, I'm like, oh, I like this, I like this. But then when I would put it all out, it just like wasn't cohesive. So like I think I am like obsessed with looking at interior design post and like your page and everything because it's just so cool. Because if you're not good at it, it's like amazing to see someone that is. And I love that you do that for other people. Um, my one of my questions is what advice would you give to someone who is unsure about like if they can do a career alongside their husband's hockey career? Because a lot of the time I feel like our us as women and like as significant others of these like pro hockey players, we kind of get like overshadowed by that and people think like, oh, I can't do it or it's too much to do it, or do you know what I'm saying? So like,
No, 100%. I mean, to be honest, even for someone who has a full-blown career and gets handed opportunities all the time, I am forever going to be overshadowed by my husband. I've seen it recently where like I'm in meetings and we're pitching a project that's the craziest budget ever, and they're talking about my husband's playoff game last night, and I'm thinking to myself like, I know you're not. I
yeah.
know you're, hiring me because so
Right.
I think at the end of the day, I just do so much like mental health work on myself that like you have to believe in yourself, you have to bet on yourself. And I really couldn't, again, I have to compliment my husband. Ugh, hurts. But he's so supportive and he really pushes me in the right direction of like, you can do this. You're a badass. Like it's I really do have a good support system. I am very type A. So for me to be able to be like, oh no, I can do all this, like it's no problem. It
Mhm.
comes a little natural to me. I think reaching out to girls that are in the same position as you and like me reaching out to Sharat's wife, like that stuff and like having someone to bounce ideas off of, she was so helpful. Um, is a direction that I would go, or at least, recommend somebody goes. As far as finding the passion, like you'd be surprised. I always say you have to get uncomfortable. And I have to get uncomfortable all the time with my job, especially like networking and doing all these things. Like you really do have to put yourself out there and you don't know some of the stuff that I put myself into. It's not exactly the direction I'd like to go, but something else came of it. So it's kind of like building the Tampa house and having to sell it and being like, oh, that sucks.
Mhm.
But I actually really like that process. So maybe if I did that for other people, and then you just kind of like it's the brainstorming and kind of going in any direction. Um, it's never going to be easy while they're playing. And I think at one point I was talking to my husband, I think it was on that airplane ride. I was like, well, it's either I wait until you're done, which now we know when that is, and or I do it now and it's going to be really difficult.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
It's funny. I feel like a lot of the things that when you're in the thick of it and you're going through something really hard, it's really hard to see like the other side of it. Like for you, your postpartum, you're leaving your house that you just built, like the emotions attached to that. But I feel like you had to like go through that process to like find your purpose and passion and like what you want to do for you in this life as well. And like if you didn't go through that, you probably wouldn't have uncovered that you love to do this.
100%.
It's so crazy. I love
It
that.
is, it is crazy how it all adds up. And even if like some of the girls, like I know like there's some people with backgrounds like from Sweden or Finland or anything that have a hard time working if they're in Canada or the US. Um, I have charity positions that I sit on that are also full-time jobs.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily like you don't have to do something that's paid. Um, I've found a lot of, work and like fulfillment of like sitting on charity boards or going to galas and events and being on committees and like you never know who you're going to meet there. I found a lot of good friends through things like that. So it's if you don't want to work, you're not sure what you want to work with, at least get involved in the community and put yourself out there.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to get into that too, but I have a couple more questions for you about interior design. So I see that New York, is that a book up in the background?
Yes.
Okay, it made me think of a question because this is something I've been telling my husband that I want to do is I want to have like little pieces of each place that we've played like throughout his career because I feel like each place is like special to us in different ways and not always in like the way of like having like the name of it or something, but just like little sentiments of like places that we've played. Do you have any advice or like ideas on things that people could snag from different places that they've played for like their forever home?
Honestly, it's such a good idea. This is so funny. And I can't say what it's for, but Jonathan and I call my husband Jonathan. It also comes off
I'm
people,
like,
but
wait, who's John?
I know. Jonathan's my other husband. We met at
Like, hold on.
17. Jonathan and I have a photo shoot for something in right when we get back. You'll see it on social media, but I can't quite say what it is. And they asked for things that we either got in our travels through like through our journey with, now that we're in Vancouver and stuff. And I thought that's such a good idea. And I don't know why I don't have that. Because especially for someone, I think in New York, I definitely didn't know I was doing interior design. In Tampa, I had no idea yet. Like, I think if I knew, I would have started curating stuff like that because that's actually so cool. And a lot of the friends the people that he plays with, like, they're all traveling all year. Like, imagine, like, the hard part is curating it and then moving it. Because really, like, you're like, I don't want more. In my mind, I'm like, I want less. I'm always like clearing stuff out.
Trash. Yeah.
Just my decor flips over and there's new pieces that come in. So I do love the idea of it, and even like have like a few Tupper totes of like, things that we've collected. I love the idea of it.
Yeah. I know. I've always thought like thrifting is fun too. Like you don't always find something, but sometimes you find something like really cool that you're like, oh, this makes me think of this place. Like, like my husband now wants to collect mugs all the time, which is great. But I'm like, okay, we don't need like the Starbucks mug from like every country we've played in. Like it doesn't need to say like Austria or this. I'm like, we can just grab something like that's simple that reminds us, and ornaments too. I know a lot of people do that, which is
Yeah.
cute, but those are hard to transport too. And I always get like anxiety that they're gonna like shatter or something. Like
Mine would get stuck at customs.
yeah, or yeah, exactly. Or they steal it from you at
Yeah.
customs. So
Yeah.
I want to move on to being a mom in this lifestyle. So how has that been for you living in a different country than your own, enrolling them in school? Like, how do you find that having three young kids and living away from home?
It's definitely, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We do it because of his job. I wouldn't do it otherwise. I really wouldn't have my children away from family like this if he was in a different lifestyle or, it didn't call for that. It's so hard being away from family. Our first year living in, I remember when he got traded out to Vancouver and I was like, where is Vancouver? Like, I have no idea what that was. They flew us out a couple weeks later and I was like, okay, wow. Like, this is incredible. But it was so overwhelming because it's a different country, like schools, the healthcare is different. Um, just like overall living is so different. We're from Pittsburgh, which was different from New York price wise and, lifestyle wise, but at least it was a 6 hour drive. Now we're in almost a 6 hour flight. And, if emergencies happen, I'm calling, Betty Sue next door, not my mom. You know what I mean? So I also
Yeah.
lost my mother, unfortunately, the first season we were there, due to terminal cancer. So
Wow.
that didn't help with like being away from family, having the kids. Like, I just remember it was during COVID. We got on a plane the next morning and spent 5 months with her, but so difficult to, go through that without having my family around me. But being a mom abroad, their schedule out west is a little different too. So they're also, they're gone more and longer road trips. It's just difficult. You have to get uncomfortable and you have to like, make friends. Like I have so many friends now that are on my kids' emergency school list that I'm like, I didn't know you a couple years ago. This is so crazy.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about your mom, and I can't imagine going through that, like being away from home. And
Yeah.
again, that sounds like you're pretty fresh postpartum too, like still in those first 2 years after having a baby. So I cannot imagine
Yeah.
what that was like.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. The silver lining of it, I mean, COVID was obviously not a silver lining of it, but it ending the season and JT being like, I called my agent, we can go home tomorrow morning. I have a jet ready. Like, let's go. And I'm like, I think we have to go. And
Mhm.
they weren't starting the season back up. So we did. We went home and I was with her for the entire time. And my kids were too, which was something that we would have never gotten. Like, we would have gone home and JT would have been in Vancouver playing. It would have been so difficult. He was in the bubble during the majority of the summer, but it was just nice to, be around family just for that time.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm glad. I mean, yeah, silver lining of COVID for a lot of people, I think, in the hockey life is they were able to do things like that because of the season's ending short. And oh my gosh, but still, I can't, being so far away, I'm sure hearing that news and everything, like my heart goes out to you and having to like continue to move forward through the stresses of this life after that.
But my
Yeah.
kids help. They're so sweet. They're
Yeah.
literally the kids. My mother-in-law made like books for the kids and stuff, so they still talk about her like all the time. And my son never met her, obviously. And
That's your littlest.
yeah, and he's so sweet. I actually had a before she passed, I told her the kids' names that we were gonna name the kids because we knew we'd have one more. And I was like, it's gonna be Owen or Savannah. And she just like was stuck on the name Owen. She also had brain surgery. So a lot of things she said she was like, stuck on a lot of things. But so when I saw a medium probably like 6 months after she passed. And she's like, oh, before you go, like whenever you're ready, your mom's gonna send you Owen. And I was like,
The medium said that?
yes. And JT and I have never like announced that name. We've never said that name. It was the only boy name we ever had. It was like we picked it on our way to our honeymoon. We picked our kid. We were having a bottle of wine on the plane, going through our kid's name, and the only boy name we had was Owen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. So I saw the medium, and then we got pregnant the following season. And that summer we came home to do the gender reveal, and we
You
did the
knew.
whole.
You already knew. You were like, I don't need to do the gender reveal. Like,
I literally was like, what are the odds this is a boy? I remember walking through the field. It was like we did it. My husband has hunting property and we took the balloon out there and he tied it to a deer. He's such a hillbilly. And we put and I looked down at the balloon and the sun hit and I saw pink and I went, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And so before the balloon exploded, I was like, I already know what this is. Like my husband's gonna have 3 daughters. Like this is gonna be hilarious. And it exploded blue and my whole soul, we got a videographer because I was like, I need to watch my husband weep and all the men behind me weep. We had our family there. If this is a boy, and they did. Everyone was just
oh
like,
my
"Ah." Yeah.
God. That
It's
was
such a
probably the cool, like, did you have like full body chills?
Oh, I was sobbing. And the whole, I mean, this medium out in Vancouver was actually insane. She literally like described things that like nobody should know. Final moments with my mom that like my dad let us know about, like just really crazy. And I was like, this is so wild. And then right before she's like, oh, before you go, your mom's gonna send you Owen whenever you're ready. And I was like,
Chills
what?
I 100% am a believer in that. Like, though that's not a coincidence. Like that's I'm always say this word wrong. It's like synchronicity. Is that how you say it? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like
I listen, I'm not your
help
girl
me
for
out
the
here. But it's like when things like are so randomly coincidental that you're like, this is not a coincidence. Like, this is supposed to be this way. Like, this is a sign. This is like validation. This is like everything that I need. So that is so amazing and beautiful. And like, wow. Like, that's just,
so wild. My due date was the day she died, September 8th. And the first of every month, it's like a thing that my sisters and I do. We say rabbit, 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 which is like a good luck for the month. My mom did it like our entire childhood, growing in our adulthood. She literally would call me like on my 25th and be like, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. And so we continued the tradition. We put in our little group chat. My son was born on the 1st of September instead of going on the 8th, which was the day she had passed. He ended up going on the 1st of the month.
that's another
I
great
know,
little
so sweet,
sign.
so
Oh, that's
sweet.
so beautiful. So
Yeah.
your family is complete, right?
Yeah.
With your 3 kids. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you found that like the older that they get, the harder it is for your older two to leave Pittsburgh? Because I feel like then they kind of start to have this awareness. I feel like 3-ish, 4-ish and under, they're kind of more like kind of go with the flow, like can be an exciting adventure. Like they have their friends, but they're able to like understand like, oh, we'll be back, it's fine. But like when you have an established home somewhere, do they get attached to like being there with the family and like being with their friends? Like how do they process like what you guys do?
Totally. You're absolutely right with like, we're getting to the age of like, this is going to get a little harder here. It's honestly harder for us to leave Van, because our family visits so much. So we love Pittsburgh. Hez and I actually refer to home as Vancouver now, just because the majority of
Oh.
the time we've been there. It's a really sweet thing. I think I said that to somebody in management. She was like, I love that. And I was like, well, I'm sure you do.
Well,
Um,
good thing we're
yeah.
coming back for 7 more years. So
Yeah. So it's good that we like it. Um, but I think this time leaving Van, we pulled them from school a couple weeks early, which they don't know that the last 2 weeks of school are like parties and pizza parties and picnics and stuff. And I was like, this is so, and there was tears. There was tears. It was, I know so-and-so's birthday party's next week. Can we come back? And I'm like, you don't realize how far we live, do you? Like, and so I think it's less sad leaving Pittsburgh because they're like, okay, Mima's flying out with us. Like they don't really register leaving where we will consider home one day. I think they very much consider Vancouver home. And truthfully, so do JT and I. The reason that we're bringing them back to Pittsburgh is for family and a bit of a break.
yeah,
Yeah.
take them. All right. I don't
Yeah.
need anything. Call me if there's an emergency.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Let me know if the rental's burning down. We're all good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's so sweet that you guys love it so much. And
Yeah.
it's really like your second home. Okay, something I want to ask you too, because I feel like you're so good at this, is because I follow you obviously and I look at your stories, is like bringing the women together on the team and making it like a fun space for people to just like truly enjoy the hockey season. There needs to be someone like that on every team, like, first of all. So, like, that's amazing because a lot of the time you guys are the ones like planning group functions and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's like your role all the time, but as of lately, I was seeing your playoff stories. I'm like, okay, she's so cute.
We're
She's
lighting
doing
it up.
all this fun
Yeah.
stuff.
We went hard. And she's like, what in the Amex bill is happening? I said, you shut your mouth. This is you. You got into the playoffs and you knew how hard I went.
Yeah.
Always. No. It's such an interesting year. Obviously, 31 and he's been in the league for 12 years. I'm getting into that bit of a veteran role, which is just so crazy because in my mind I'm 21 and I'm the funnest ever. But I really like there's no captain's wife. My captain's really young and he's great. And yeah, so I definitely came into the role this year of like running the wives fund, and Lexi Demko is also in there, and she between her and I, like, we welcome everybody to the team, set up all the functions. She is a master with her cricket. Anything you've seen that's cricketed, it's her, and it's actually insane. I can't take any responsibility for that. But as far as like I threw the welcome party and like, just honestly, there's no reason being that beautiful of a city and like having such a fun young team and like just getting everybody together and making it a blast. Everybody who's there is far from home for the most. There's maybe two people that are like from the area, but other than that, it's like I've never been to BC before. I've never had sushi. Like, so there's so much of an opportunity. We're right next to Whistler. We did a big Whistler girls trip this year, and it was out of control. It was so much fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's just really important to do that and to be so welcoming because, like you said, everybody's away from home. And it's something that I find like I do the Sunday check-ins, obviously, and like there's like a reoccurring theme where people like feel left out so much during the season. And it's so frustrating to me because it shouldn't be like that. And like, I don't know why that happens so frequently. Do you have any like advice to people on like how to have a more inclusive environment? Because like, I don't know, like there's so many people from like all different places, all different ages. There's moms, there's people that don't have kids. Like, how do girls bring everybody together to create just like a good dynamic? Because at the end of the day, if like the dynamic is good off of the ice, like it's gonna be good for the husbands on the ice too, if like everybody's having a great season and getting along.
Yeah. I think just having a good group of veteran wives like will change a whole room around. I think just like we drop the ego. Like, we don't care who your husband is. Like, it doesn't matter if he has 10 points or 100. It's just like being a nice person, being inclusive, making sure everybody's involved. There's so many moves throughout the year that I'm the one who's sending like the welcome text, and just like that goes such a long way. It really does. I remember going up and down and people being, so receptive to that and sweet. And making sure I was included, even though I didn't pay the wives fund that year because, you know, it's the 16th time he's been sent down. I think with his past experience of that, I took that into consideration of like how I'd like to act whenever it's my turn to be like, welcome to the Canucks. Like,
Mhm.
let me know if you need anything. We're like building a book right now that like when new people come in, like you just hand them the book. Here's your pediatrician. Here's your, it honestly makes it so much easier. And you're absolutely right that it makes it easier for the guys because the guys come in and they have somebody that just like automatically works for them. And like, this is what we're doing. And then, but the girl doesn't, which we actually do in Vancouver. So shout out to Megan Stalker because she kills it. She manages all of us girls,
Oh,
concerts, restaurant, like all of the stuff, 10 out of 10. It's so nice to have within an organization. But just even have like, you know, a fellow wife that's like, you know, this is where I get my nails done, or like, this is what we're doing today. I always say, like, I'm just gonna shoot a bunch of stuff in the group chat. If you can make it, great. If you can't, like next time for sure. And the more stuff we did, the more people were getting into it. And hearing at the end of the season, like, wow, this was one of my favorite seasons he's ever played. Wow, I really want him to resign here. Like, I had so much fun here. This feels like home. That is worth planning everything, having those part. Like, I just want people to enjoy it because it's not easy and it can be very lonely. And we're in the middle of nowhere. Like, so it just goes such a long way. And I think that just comes from experience of, you know, playing other places.
yeah, I totally agree. And like also the people that do that and take other girls under their wing, people don't forget that. Like just different teams that we've been on and stuff. I always remember like the person that's like there and checking in and like, hey, do you need anything? Like, hey, how's this going? Hey, did you find like a pediatrician or this or that? Like you remember
Yeah.
those people because they take the time to like help you. And yeah, it's really important to like reach out and continue to like check in, especially with new girls or people come in like halfway through the season. I feel like that's also really intimidating that people forget. Like if you've never experienced that where you haven't come through halfway in the season, like you might not know what that feels like, but usually there's like an established group of women already that have already like kind of made those bonds. And so coming in can be really intimidating because you're like, how am I going to like fit into this dynamic in this group? And so like when someone like you comes in and does that, it's like life changing. Like it's major. So
So nice. And to be honest, like the clicks can happen so quickly because people are there. There's probably like 3 or 4 of us that have been there the whole time together. And, you know, that's really easy for us to all click in, but I just don't do the click thing. I will hang out with the girl whose husband's barely making the team, or the veteran wives, or the girl that just came at the deadline. I don't, and that's kind of the vibe that we're setting here, like setting in Vancouver is like, you know, be nice to everybody. Like it just flows easy when everybody just hangs with everybody.
yeah, and I am curious about this because I don't think anyone's ever talked about this before, but what is the wives fund? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's my husband asks this every year when I'm like, oh, I'm getting the Wise Fund together. He's like, what's the Wise Fund? I'm like, I can't. Because he knows better. We've literally been paying this Wise Fund for 12 years. It is everybody puts in, I think in Vancouver, I think it's like 1,500 bucks Canadian. We all put it into a big pot, and that covers baby showers, wedding gifts, flowers if you have a death in the family. Um, I think the Canucks themselves send birthday flowers to us girls, so that doesn't include that. But like just little, you know, bridal showers, bachelorettes, sprinkles, all the good things to celebrate us girls.
Oh, I love that. And that's really
Great.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. And then you can just
Yeah.
use it whenever there's
So
something,
nice.
which is also important to do when you're away from home, is like celebrating those little and big moments. Like if someone's getting married in the summer, like it's fun to celebrate, you know,
Totally.
because
Yeah.
they're not home and they're not doing that with their friends. So the last thing I want to talk about is just your involvement in the community. You mentioned that earlier in the episode, and I'd love for you to just kind of share a little bit more about that and what you do and how other people can get involved with it.
For sure. So my first year in Vancouver, I got approached for a charity that's called Hockey Helps the Homeless. I went to the event that year, just donated like a Miller basket. And that all those donations go to support homelessness across BC, all the beneficiaries of, you know, soup kitchens and shelters and, you know, rehabs and all of that. So I got involved in that. I've sat on the board now for 4 years. And I also sit on Canucks Kids Fund. It's my first year doing it this season. That is an incredible, it's obviously associated with the Canucks. So I've done that this first season. That does BC Children's Hospital, Autism Network. They have a bunch of different beneficiaries, mainly for kids, youth hockey. It's incredible. We're about to do something really special coming up this season with it, JT and I, so I'm really excited. And then I do a lot of stuff with melanoma, obviously, to honor my mother. We do a lot of work with Move, Save Your Skin Foundation, and Melanoma Canada. So just throughout the year, I'm attending galas. A lot of my girlfriends are on boards there, so we're attending galas for them. I think I did maybe 6 or 7 galas this season.
Wow.
It's like 6 or 7 proms, to be honest, because it's like full glam hair, makeup, and a gown, and I
Yeah,
absolutely love it. And it's purchasing a table at those. You just take like 10 of your good friends, and it's just a fun night to support a great cause.
oh, that's amazing. And how can other people get involved with these things? And do you do this as like a team ever, like with the other girls?
I have taken some of the girls to galas with me. A lot of the tables that I'm purchasing, I'm already going with a group of, I have a good amount of outside hockey girlfriends just because we've been in Vancouver for a while now, and my kids' school. And, I have just met people through different things that I'd have a group outside, but I wish I would take a few hockey girls with me so they can enjoy it. But as far as getting involved, honestly, the Canucks are great with being like, what are you passionate about? Like if you're passionate about like melanoma, they selected Jonathan and I do the Hockey Fights Cancer Night in honor of my mother, donated $20,000 to a charity of our choice. In honor of my mother. It was incredible. They did a whole video on her and like honored. It was so beautiful. So I think that's the first place I would go, would be the organization, and be like, hey, I love, dog shelters. I want to get involved. Do you know a good place to volunteer? Because their community department most likely will be like, yeah, here's the one we usually work with. Like, let's take a tour. I know in Tampa, they were incredible with their community. I was like, this is insane. I think I did like 7 different little tours where, where can JT and I donate? So that was so great. So that's a great outlet to go, is to ask the team like, hey, I'm super passionate about this. What foundations do we have in this city that I can support?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're so awesome. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I'm happy that we got the chance to talk. And if anyone wants to reach out about anything, or if they want to follow your interior design page to book for 2026, where can they find you?
Sounds wild. That sounds wild. So my interior design business is Natalie Miller Interiors, easy enough. And my social media for my personal, I don't even know it. Natalie Miller _ 22.
Underscore.
Yeah. It's the unrelevant part, though.
I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes. You can click
Appreciate that.
direct link. All right. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about you and your hockey story.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.